Undisputed, the Mexican Monster Pack out now.
Boxing King Media. It's Thursday evening. Gareth A. Davies back from his holidays. You still got a bit of a tan, Gareth?
Well, yeah, I'm trying, yeah. But I've been out enjoying cycling still. As you know, I cycle every day and I try and paddleboard every other day. So keeping the tan intact. I've been back at work a week already, my friend. It's a very weird limbo time at the moment with Dave Allen and Arslanbek Makhmudov scheduled for Sheffield in October, and Moses Itauma and Dillian White next week, and David Adeleye and Filip Hrgovic in Riyadh, and we'll all be there next week. But apart from that, everyone, it feels like Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury have retired. There's all this fluff about Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua should never be allowed. And then the rest of them in the division haven't got a fight at the moment. Very odd indeed, I'm afraid.
Well, I've got a few topics to talk about, and one of the things I want to start off with, it's a question that I asked Dom Ingle yesterday on the podcast, and it's only one question I'm going to ask you about the whole Dubois Usyk thing, this whole thing about him quitting, because it was a massive talking point in the last 7 days. And this is a question for you, Gareth. Whether he quit or not quit, does he owe that to the fans? Does he owe his life to the fans? The same fans who will cheer him when he's winning and also rip him to shreds when he's losing. Does a boxer owe their life? Because God forbid if something happens to him, are they going to turn up at his funeral, all that kind of stuff? Do you know what I mean? So it's a bit of a deep question, but do the boxers owe their lives to fans where they have to go out on a sword every single time?
I don't think it's as plain and simple as that, because everyone is made as they are. Some people just get up till they're nailed to the canvas. I think Anthony Joshua's like that. I think Derek Chisora's like that. I think if they just fight till they're knocked out or stopped. No, honestly, Anthony Joshua just fights on, even blindly fights on. That is my true impression of him. People are made as they are, and when Daniel Dubois was broken, he stopped. He was broken and demoralised by the brilliance of Alexander Usyk. Do they owe their lives to the fans? No, of course they don't. Of course they don't. They live to fight another day. That's what they should do. But how they are in their hearts and how they are in their psyches, they're all different. They're all fighters. For me, the code of conduct between fighters is slightly different. If Tony Bellew wants to say quit, that's fine. If Derek Chisora wants to say quit, that's fine. And they want to use other semantic language, that's fine. If David Haye says he quit, that's fine. But for me, he got broken down and demoralised by Alexander Usyk. He's an on-top fighter, Daniel Dubois, and if he's not on top, he's broken by his opponent. We've seen it twice by Usyk. He was better the second time. And Usyk, as we have seen, is better the second time around against almost everyone he fights.
Good stuff. That's the only question I had about that. I'm going to move on to, since we've last spoke, Chris Eubank Jr., Conor Benn is now signed. There was talks it wasn't going to get done. You sometimes have inside information. So can you let us know, Gareth, what's made the fight happen? Why is it now happening? And also what's happening with that weight clause?
Well, he's going to have to do it all over again. Eubank's going to have to drain his body down. It's not something we want to see. It gives Conor Benn a better chance of winning this time. I agreed with the 116, 112 unanimous last time. I think he did win 8 rounds to 4. But Benn's stock rose and he recovered very quickly afterwards. The opposite to Chris Eubank Jr., who didn't recover as quickly and was chronically dehydrated afterwards for 36 hours. It's going to be a tougher fight for him second time around. He knows what's coming this time. He thought he was going to stop Conor Benn, if you recall, in the first fight. That's what his feeling was. He's got 12 hard rounds again. I'm still picking him just to do it, but I'm giving Conor Benn more of a chance in the second fight. What's he been wrangling about? What do you think? Money. Money. Simple as that. That's what they've been wrangling about. They found the right date, November the 15th, I think it is. And they're calling it unfinished business. I thought it was finished business, one and done. But we'll moan and groan. I've just got a feeling they might be able to create a little bit of magic again around the circus, bit of drama, because they need to match the last time. And if they can match what they did in the ring, it'll be a great event again.
You seem quite confident about the weight clause. Is that fact, or is that your assumption?
I know it is an assumption, but reading between the lines on what Conor Benn has said, and you were there filming me with him, it did big numbers. When I spoke to Conor Benn, it was kind of an off-the-record chat that you filmed very surreptitiously, that did big numbers and was a very interesting interview. He had very interesting views. Why should I give him any advantages? He's been saying, and Eddie Hearn has said the same. So they will not be giving him advantages. They will make him boil down to 160 pounds again. And it's going to be a hard weight cut for him. Not getting any younger. It was hard last time. It'll be even harder this time.
Okay. The money side of things, obviously, there's been rumors about, Canelo getting crazy amounts. Do you think maybe there's been an element of, Chris seeing the amount of eyes that first event drew? And I suspect it was more eyes than any previous Riyadh season event. Do you reckon he's probably used that as a negotiating tactic to get more money? If that is,
Potentially, yeah, but I think they almost called his bluff with Shaka Stevenson, didn't they? They got Shaka Stevenson and Conor Benn on the Ariel Helwani show together, and that fight looked like it was being made in the studio, didn't it? And it really got me going. I was quite excited about the prospect of Shakur stepping up from lightweight to welterweight to fight Conor Benn. Look, I haven't been party to either the contracts across my desk. No one's leaked any of that. But I do think it's been a hard negotiation. It will have been about money. And Chris Eubank Jr. will either have been saying, give me a bit of leeway on the weight clause, or if you're not going to do it, give me enough money to make sure that I'm killing my body to do it. I use that metaphorically, of course. That I'm literally draining my body down to make the weight. Hopefully, we won't see him in a sauna suit this time, or in the sauna, and he's going to have to do it by gradual physical depletion of his body.
well, he's got plenty of time for it. It's in November, so we look forward to that. The next thing I want to speak to you about, obviously, this whole thing with Boxer losing the Sky deal. There's been an article that's been put out today on everything boxing under the Uncrowned banner. But before I talk about that article, I've got a question for you. I don't know if you can answer this from your time in the media and working in boxing for so long. Why would Sky Sports, and this is the figure I've got online, invest £36 million in helping Boxer grow stable, get the fighters' names out there, build their profiles, and then walk away and then risk losing all these stars that they've built, like Whitaker, Azim, obviously Fraser Clark on there, Caroline Dubois,
Callum Simpson, Lauren Price, Fran Hennessy, who had 6 fights on there.
risk losing all these going to the zone, like with Matchroom, Queensbury, or even America with MVP or whatever. Why would they do that?
Well, boxing's always been gravy for them, and the pay-per-view events are the big pay-per-view events are what's sustained them. They've slowly moved out of the model, and they're a massive loss for boxing because their broadcast team and the way in which they broadcast and their knowledge from 3 decades broadcasting boxing is a huge loss to the sport, in my view. And I hope they do sat up with a new promoter. Top Rank need a new promoter. Top Rank could do worse than invest in some British boxers and come into the fold here in the UK, in my view. Why would they do it? They're not seeing it as the loss that is going to DAZN. And obviously they're not going to DAZN, although some of the boxers may jump ship, because a lot of their deals will have been tied up with, you're going to be seen on Sky Sports. You haven't mentioned who they're going to be with next, Boxer, and that's out now, obviously. But I really and truly hope that Sky stays in boxing. And if there's no more pay-per-view anymore, as Turki Al Sheikh's putting out there, there isn't going to be scope for Sky to be drawn in and brought in when the big pay-per-views are on. like a Moses Talma, Alexander Usyk, for example, that would do massive numbers on pay-per-view next year if that happens, wouldn't it? That would do massive numbers on Sky. But it wouldn't surprise me to see the landscape change when that happens, because Sky could do a million and a half views on that, a million and a half buys. So some of it doesn't make sense. Often it comes down to executive decisions in the boardroom. Like you say, I didn't know that figure. It's good to know it. 36 million invested in the last 5 years. That's 7 million a year, isn't it? Going into boxing. I think Ben Shalom's created a really kind of solid stable that was on the way up and growing. He's been unlucky with timings. Obviously, Frank Warren, starting with people like Bruno and Hatton and Naz and all those guys on Sky through his reign, or his tenure, should I put it, with Sky Sports and Sky Box Office, was extraordinary. And then obviously Eddie Hearn for the next 7 years, with Anthony Joshua, Carl Froch and others, obviously kept that momentum going. Following those two great promoters, the two leading promoters in the country, was always going to be a hard task. I think, if I'm being fair about Ben, I don't think he fostered all the relationships he could have the entire time. I know that many of us in the industry wanted him to succeed. And I wish him all the best with BBC iPlayer, BBC Sounds, which are going to come to anyway, and where they go with that. It's not the same kind of platform, even though you and I were looking up the figures earlier. I thought it was 9 million subscribers to BBC iPlayer. It's 16 now, over 16 million. Obviously, there's a huge resonance there with the numbers, but it's still potluck in terms of picking up those viewers, if you like, unless you drive the platform, unless you drive the promotion of what's coming up. Because as you know, when you go on to BBC iPlayer, you just go on to watch a certain thing that you're going to watch. You don't just go on there by chance and there's boxing on there. It'll go on there, it'll stay on there. And as we know with algorithms, with YouTube channels now, with platforms, do people go back and watch it? Only if it's a massive event.
Yeah. Well, the article basically says, a quote, Boxer teamed up with the BBC to be its next TV partner, and sources close to Uncrowned obviously told them that, and they've described it as BBC iPlayer and BBC Linear Network. Obviously, we know what BBC iPlayer is, but from your understanding, what do they mean BBC Linear Network will be involved in showing the events?
Sorry, I just had a note come in here. Look, I think it can be a success, but it's no guarantee. It's not Sky Sports.
I'll tell you the question again because I don't think you heard it. So the reference point is,
Apologies.
it's all right, that the shows will be on BBC iPlayer and BBC Linear Network. What do you think that BBC Linear Network bit means?
That could be Radio 5, it could be on BBC Sounds, so it could be radio as well as broadcast. But there's no indication that it's going to be on primetime BBC One, BBC Two, which is the two channels you'd want it to be on, because it would give it massive, or BBC Three, BBC Four, if that's what they're called now. But you want them on the mainstream. To go back historically, I worked for Bellator MMA when they had a deal with BBC iPlayer, and the BBC didn't drive the promotion of Bellator on there. It was just sat on there on the platform what it does generally, yes, it brings some new eyeballs to the sport of MMA, and it brings new eyeballs to MMA, but they've got to be able to do all that shoulder programming around a Lauren Price as a sporting hero around a Ben Whittaker. And if they do that and they shoulder program and they get them on different things involved with the BBC, then that's great because they'll build the personalities. I've just done a big interview with Fran Hennessy, took her paddleboarding. One of her bucket list things is to be on Strictly. Now, you put a boxer on Strictly and someone knows they're fighting, then they'll watch them. That kind of thing will herald creating stars. But what it means in linear terms, we're going to have to find out exactly what the BBC means about that, because I don't know, I can't decipher it in exact terms.
Okay, well, like I said, we'll have probably more information tomorrow in regards to how many TV dates they've got, how the structure of it will work. But it's good to see that they're still in business, and obviously, if it means it's a case of being on BBC and then going somewhere else in a few years, we'll wait and see what happens with that. If you're Adam Azim, Ben Whittaker, some of the other names you mentioned there, Caroline Dubois, Callum Simpson, what do you do? I'll tell you what, make it hypothetical. Which promoter do you go to if, as it's rumored, that they will leave?
You go to the zone, don't you?
Would get out.
Well, there's an argument if you're a female boxer, you go to MVP. So Caroline Dubois, Lauren Price. I mean, I see just signed Terry Harper in the last week, Jake Paul. I'd go to MVP. Ben Whittaker, I've seen him sitting around Eddie Hearn recently. Frank Warren's also got Anthony Yard and Joshua Buatsi. Callum Simpson I could see with Frank Warren as well. Adam Azim I could see with Frank Warren. I could see any of them with Frank Warren. I mean, he's got such an amazing stable at the moment. But I could see Eddie going after them as well. And if you want to make your name in America, not just the UK, you might want to go with Eddie.
Okay.
Because he's got more cards in the US, hasn't he? But either is, I mean, it'd be interesting. It could be the source of contention between the two promoters at some point. But the women, I would certainly go under the Jake Paul MVP banner.
Okay, let's see what happens.
Respect isn't given, it's earned in blood.
Undisputed, the Mexican Monster Pack out now.